Chapter 12. A Justified Faith. Defenses of modernity recount the trials of daily living before the advent of affluence and technology. Our ancestors, they remind us, were infested with lice and parasites and lived above cellars heaped with their own feces. Food was bland, monotonous, and intermittent. Healthcare consisted of the doctor's saw and the dentist's pliers. Both sexes labored from sunrise to sundown, whereupon they were plunged into darkness. Winter meant months of hunger, boredom, and gnawing loneliness in snowbound farmhouses. But it was not just mundane physical comforts that our recent ancestors did without. It was also the higher and nobler things in life, such as knowledge, beauty, and human connection. Until recently, most people never traveled more than a few miles from their place of birth. Everyone was ignorant of the vastness of the cosmos, the prehistory of civilization, the genealogy of living things, the genetic code, the microscopic world, and the constituents of matter in life. Musical recordings, affordable books, instant news of the world, reproductions of great art, and film dramas were inconceivable, let alone available in a tool that can fit in a shirt pocket. When children immigrated, their parents might never see them again, or hear their voices, or meet their grandchildren. And then there are the modernity's gifts of life itself. The additional decades of existence, the mothers who live to see their newborns, the children who survived their first years on Earth. Even with all these reasons why no romantic would really step into a time machine, the nostalgic have always been able to pull out one moral card: the profusion of modern violence. At least, they say, our ancestors did not have to worry about muggings, school shootings, terrorist attacks, Holocaust, world wars, killing fields, napalm gulags, and nuclear annihilation. Surely no Boeing 747, no antibiotics, no iPod is worth the suffering that modern societies and their technologies can wreak. And here is where unsentimental history and statistical literacy can change our view of modernity, for they show that nostalgia for a peaceable past is the biggest illusion of all. We now know that native peoples whose lives are so romanticized in today's children books had rates of death from warfare that were greater than those of our world wars. The romantic visions of medieval Europe omit the exquisitely crafted instruments of torture and are innocent of the 30-fold greater risk of murder in those times. The centuries for which people are nostalgic were times in which the wife of an adulterer could have her nose cut off. A 7-year-old could be hanged for stealing a petticoat. A prisoner's family could be charged for easement of irons. A witch could be sawn in half, and a sailor could be flogged to a pulp. The moral commonplaces of our age, such as that slavery, war, and torture are wrong, would have been seen as saccharine sentimentality, and our notions of universal human rights almost incoherent. Genocide and war crimes were absent from the historical record only because no one at the time thought they were a big deal. From the vantage point of almost 7 decades after the world wars and genocides of the first half of the 20th century, we see that they were not harbingers of worse to come, nor a new normal to which the world would grow inured, but a local high from which it would bumpily descend. And the ideologies behind them were not woven into modernity, but atavisms that ended up in the dustbin of history. The forces of modernity, science, reason, humanism, individual rights, have not, of course, pushed steadily in one direction, nor will they ever bring about a utopia or end the frictions and hurts that come with being human. But on top of all the benefits that modernity has brought us in health, experience, and knowledge, we can add its role in the reduction of violence. Though our escapes from destructive contests is not a cosmic purpose, it is a human purpose. Discovering earthly ways in which humans can flourish, including stratagems to overcome the tragedy of the inherent appeal of aggression, should be purpose enough for anyone. It is a goal that is nobler than joining a celestial choir, melting into a cosmic spirit, or being reincarnated into a higher life form, because the goal can be justified to any fellow thinker, rather than being inculcated to arbitrary factions by charisma, tradition, or force. And the data we have seen show that it is a goal on which progress can be made, progress that is halting and incomplete, but unmistakable nonetheless. For all the tribulations in our lives, for all the troubles that remain in the world, the decline of violence is an accomplishment that we can savor, and an impetus to cherish the forces of civilization and enlightenment that made it possible. Steven Pinker, The Better Angels of Our Nature: Why Violence Has Declined. The Justification. Reflecting on the awesome facts of all that humanity has achieved and overcome can propel one's spirit to take flight and it can lift one above the labyrinth of cynical judgments about humanity, and above the clouds under which toil and drudgery occupy too many of our days. And it offers one a grand overall panoramic perspective, permitting one's eyes to fix on cosmic horizons, while never replacing the ground from which one flew with fantasy or delusion or denial of reality. I know it lifts me, and it supplies the justification that the title of this book refers to. We've gone from cave dwellers to space explorers, all by ourselves through the application of knowledge. And we know that this singular, awesome fact was accomplished by humanity. Whereas, in contrast, and I will continue to emphasize, God is an unproven, problematic, and dubious hypothesis for the universe itself. For specific gods and religions, the situation is exponentially worse. It was not celestial superheroes or sacrificial blood magic that got us here. It was science, technology, literacy, democracy, civil rights, and education, not one of which is even mentioned in the Bible. It was reason, free inquiry, empiricism, tolerance within limits, none of which has ever set well with virtually any religion. It is beyond clear at this point that when I cite my faith, I certainly don't mean blind faith. I mean a justified confidence, a confidence born of evidence and observation, not credulity. It's faith in the sense of hope and trust, not believing in things without sufficient evidence, often in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. I shall now further supplement this faith by further exploring just all that humanity has managed to achieve. Exploring the evidence. Just as I like to consider myself an explorer, possessing a desire to explore every aspect of reality, so humanity is a race of explorers who ever traverse and terraform landscapes mental and physical. Humanity has always been driven to cross the next mountain and the next sea. It's innate in us to question, to be curious, and to evolve. We have progressed in absolutely every area, moral to scientific. From prehistory, we have survived countless disasters, natural and artificial. We endure periods of retardation, only to always progress in the end. We have witnessed the proliferation of democratic politics and laws for human and civil rights replace the ruler and the mob, as our astounding accomplishment of civilization is continually refined and improved, replacing the barbarism of both earlier civilizations and the life in the state of nature that most of our ancestors knew before it. We've seen an end to cultural and geographic isolation that kept people isolated and ignorant in many worlds on this planet. Superstition has widely been replaced by reason and actual evidence. We have seen incessant medical advances. The inquisitor and the exorcist have been replaced by the doctor and the psychologist. Science has doubled human life expectancy in the last 150 years from what it had been for the majority of recorded history. The poorest person today often has better care than did kings and royalty for all of human history. Venturing further, slavery, once ubiquitous and legal everywhere in the world, is now illegal almost everywhere in the world. War, once a daily part of a chaotic life everywhere, now is an occasional occurrence in only the less developed and fortunate places on this earth. War used to be thought noble and glorious rather than mere homicide. In times past, there were no worldwide relief efforts or safety nets. Life was far more tenuous and dangerous. Poverty was far, far more widespread. You died along with your crops. The state of food, hygiene, entertainment, education, opportunity, and virtually everything else was something only a demented mind could long for. Women, children, and minorities of every kind cannot dream of the advances this world would see and ultimately always sees. Now, even bullying, once considered a normal part of life, is not tolerated. Technology has increasingly connected us and expanded our sphere of empathy and understanding and lessened tribalistic mentalities. We stumble, but we always seem to learn. Just as with a single human child, our species does indeed mature and evolve, though not always in a straight line, with the accumulation of knowledge and experience through trial and error and imperfect systems and inventions. The abuses of the future progress, even at their worst, pale in comparison to the entire world that our various ever-improving types of progress have given us. In short, more people in more places more of the time have more rights, freedoms, happiness, health, education, and prosperity than ever before in history. With humanism, without delusion. Just contemplate all those awe-inspiring marvels humanity has created, from art to music to writing to drama to medicine to science to technology to, again, civilization itself. And yet, though we are by far the most advanced, Homo sapiens is not the only species to create or demonstrate empathy. It's evolutionary, and we're not the end product of evolution because there is no end product of evolution. We see beauty and ugliness in ourselves, just as in nature, which we are a part of. There is still so much that needs to be and can be improved about the world. Happiness can be elusive, and great swaths of people endure untold misery. It's the overall story of humanity and the overall progress we have made and always ultimately make, and the way by which we make it, that makes this faith justified and makes me say that we are diamonds whose beauty still shines through, however small in the universe, however covered in dirt. This faith requires no unsupported beliefs about the universe. It claims no absolute prophecy about the future, no panacea for all our problems. It admits things can and have gone wrong. It looks to history and to all the knowledge hard won and to our fellow humans to guide us. We have had to learn the hard way, for example, that sometimes incremental change is what is needed. And while you and I may die, the human race doesn't have to. And there may be another day when another you and I don't have to either. These are the kinds of distant aims that a humanist can nevertheless realistically look to. It has been asserted that humanists worship humanity, though I've never heard a self-described humanist say this. I know I don't. Some have difficulty understanding that not everyone has the impulse or compulsion to worship something. But I do say this. Humans are special, for quite obvious reasons, due to our big brains, our prefrontal cortex among known life. The good and the bad are up to and the responsibility of humans. All progress is due to human thought and effort, including the good done by religious people. And aside from issues of nature, humans have the blame for the bad. The fact is, in the end, people will let you down, but they are also the source of the greatest, deepest value in life. With wonder, without gods. I'm in this reality, this world, this life, this universe, on human beings, all that we know exists, and focus on exploring and bettering what we know is real, as shining a light on this world will alone help it, not dreams of another one. My own wonder about the universe and everything is absolutely not depleted in the least. All the things I believe because there are good reasons to accept they're true. There are good reasons to believe my loved ones love me and that the sun will rise tomorrow. I have ample, unambiguous, clear evidence for these things, unlike the infinity of things that might possibly be true but of which there is no good evidence. If you're going to go believe anything, you might as well believe everything. This is the MO that has given us a vast history of human folly. Religious faith, revelation, prophecy, dogma, subjective certainty are all proven generators of error. I actually don't claim to know everything or need to, as the religious essentially do, as that is what their belief entails in the end. More than once, I've been told that someone hopes that I'll be able to have faith one day. I've been admonished to accept religious faith, the unjustified faith addressed throughout this book concerning unsupported historical and metaphysical assertions and events that often fly in the face of everything we've learned. The thing is, pretending to know things you don't, fraudulently inflating your knowledge and disconnecting your beliefs from reality, and all that we can say with confidence that we know, allowing your beliefs to wander anywhere, or slavishly submitting to cultural impositions is not an achievement or something to be proud of, and it requires no skill. Primitive peoples have been doing it for many thousands of years. Critical thinking and skepticism are much harder, but they lead to investigation, the truth, the progress, the tempering, and the safeguards to the lunacy that once ran rampant. Meanwhile, hope, imagination, dreaming, investigation are great things. It's okay to say, I don't know, and to look at the universe without presuppositions. When I am reproached by those who say they be looking around in circles for meaning without a God, it sounds to me like slaves saying there is no meaning without a master. There are different levels and kinds of universes made up of different stuff, from the universe in your own mind, to the universe of microorganisms comprising your body, to the universe of your personal life, to the universe of certain professions and nations, to the universe of all humanity, to the universe of past and dead terrestrial epochs. What does it mean, if there is no cosmic meaning to human life and human values connected to the whole of our visible cosmos, that they have no meaning? Clearly, they do have profound meaning, regardless of the rest of our universe and its nature. And also, there is a whole universe full of possibilities and mystery and meaning out there that is much bigger and grander than any god I have ever heard of. The universe minus a god, from my perspective, makes the universe and the wonder and the possibilities far more open and interesting. So, no, no entity called God is needed to underwrite or give meaning or authority or value to anything at all. Value can exist without being imparted from an external source. And no, not believing in a God, an ill defined, incoherent, shifting, vague, self contradicting abstraction and phantom, does not mean one believes in nothing. What has been presented regarding God in my analysis? We have observed that, as far as can be seen scientifically and objectively, God is an anthropomorphic projection, a label slapped onto ignorance, an imagined other person who is not a real answer, and all the same questions apply to it that do to us. Every question you use God to answer could be asked about a God, such as where did it come from and what gives it meaning and purpose. God solves the problem of complexity with more complexity, and if it can just exist forever or be causeless, so too can the universe, which we know does exist. I have shown that the religious believer does not know there's a God, that that's an unproven hypothesis about the universe. If there is something that could be called a God, the religious believer does not know which it is. If it's anything like humans have imagined, or much less do they know its mind or plan or nature, or what about gods that has been written as accurate? Again, maybe there are many gods, an unconscious force, an evil god, maybe God is advanced alien life, maybe a god was created by another god, and maybe there's an infinite regress of gods creating gods. Maybe the God that possibly existed and created the universe. Maybe just because the creator created something, it doesn't mean it automatically deserves praise or worship. Maybe it wouldn't want it. Maybe there's an afterlife and no God, or vice versa. Navigating the contradictions of the biblical God, an Iron Age desert war God, the merely human, natural influences of this self contradicting figure easily retraceable, it seems more about hate than love, as when it drowned every child on earth. Perhaps all that cruel inanity, if it were real, could be explained by the Rowley made theory that we're in a simulation of a very advanced kid who is wreaking havoc on his toy simulation. So small on this little planet, the traditionally religious speak so confidently, likely never even contemplating the depth of their profound ignorance, and unjustified, unsupported claims, and the mutually incompatible, yet equally unsupported and sincerely held beliefs of their counterparts in other places in the world, equally brainwashed in their own cultures, using the word God as if they knew what they were talking about. Regarding morality, I feel bad when I treat another poorly. I also may in turn be treated poorly by them if I do treat them poorly. This is morality when you boil it down. It's about reasons discovered through thought and experience and objective facts, with well being as the foundation and goal. Authority and obedience to it is not morality. As we have seen, God and religion have quite often been a cause of horror for humans, dividing them in hatreds of unequal depths, devaluing humans as worthless worms, playthings. We see that a world of misery and chaos isn't desirable. Empathy is part of our nature. We see that without compassion and integrity, the world would be hell. We see that human beings are more valuable than dogma. We see that human flourishing, whatever else may or may not be true about the wider universe, is the one value that can't really be denied in this one world and life we know we have: spirituality, solace, and the universe. I separate supernaturalism from genuine spirituality with the reservation that that word can carry a wide array of meanings as well as baggage. How I define it: spirituality is a natural, human endeavor that all of reality, science, art, music, love, learning, sex, nature, friendship, wonder, adventure, human progress is sufficient to evoke. It is indeed the bouquet of natural life. We're made of stardust, our elements cooked via fusion in long dead stars. Atoms in us pass through Shakespeare, our energy will go on. It's atomic reincarnation, fantastical reality. How wonderful, because we know this fairy tale is true. When one contemplates the immensity of just the universe we can see, it is mind blowing. I am part of the human species to all it will and has achieved in its story and where it will go, forever part of and connected to that. To ponder upon deep time, or cosmic or human history, all the lives and all their similar tribulations, from heartbreak to utter joy, that people eons ago also experienced, all the relationships and adventures and civilizations that were real and led to here, to us, to me, is a solace as regards immortality, giving the world context, filling in the picture. These are contemplations that refresh and inspire and invoke gratitude and the feeling of connectedness with the universe, things that for me any worthy and valid definition of spirituality is all about. Just because it seems our existence likely ends with this life, and a thing does not lack value because it ends, our actions still reverberate as memories, histories, and all the real change that posterity will inherit. Beautiful sunsets are a prelude to darkness which wipes them out completely. The earth keeps turning, so another will come, but even if it didn't, and the sunset at hand was the last sunset ever, it would not lack value or beauty because of this. It would just return to the state of non existence that it assumed for billions of years prior to earthly sunsets. And if we view our lives as individual rivers flowing to a greater ocean, links in a chain of evolution and progress, and to reflect back to a quote shared at the beginning of this book, have a more universal and cosmic perspective with wide and more impersonal interests that will outlast us, that's not only a helpful but a true and magnificent view. As much as there may be to understand and aspire to regarding a certain conception of the individualistic Nietzschean overman who transcends human frailties and is indelible in advancing humanity, we are social creatures who are interconnected and interdependent, and we forget that at our own peril. We keep it in mind and come together in our exploration of life in the universe, setting aside our primitive divisiveness and the primitive beliefs that perpetuate it, and use our intelligence, that thing that distinguishes us most from all other known life. There is no good reason that the stars can be the limit. If we are able to further ameliorate or surpass the darkness and the predation, and further increase the beautiful sunsets, it will be us who have achieved it. It's certainly clear that it is up to us to do it, and nothing and no one else is going to. And I would argue that postulating fairies and phantoms, wizards and monsters beyond the beautiful sunsets adds nothing to their beauty, that these fantasies blur our vision and being able to ascertain the actual facts of the universe, which give us leverage on our future and enable us to change it. And that rather frequently these chimeras are distractions that take away from appreciating and absorbing and understanding the rays of warmth and beauty in life, and they add an immense amount of darkness all their own. When I hear, I believe in a higher power, something bigger than myself, I respond, as do I, several actually, such as humanity, progress, the universe.